Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Reynolds, the Chancellor with the Archdiocese of Louisville. Welcome to our podcast series, What's New in ArchLou? This show highlights the people and ministries of the Archdiocese of Louisville, the Catholic Church in Central Kentucky. Join us each month as we welcome guests to discuss what's new in the Archdiocese and invite you to get more involved as you deepen your engagement with your Catholic faith. This program is brought to you by the ArchLou Podcast Network. Well, today we welcome Dr. Karen Shadle, the Director of our Offices of Worship. Karen joined the Archdiocese in 2016 after serving in parish ministry and as campus minister at Bellarmine University. She's been on the show before. Welcome back, Karen.
Thank you for having me back.
Karen, besides leading our Office of Worship, also serves on the Liturgy and Devotions Working Group of the National Eucharistic Revival, which is organized by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, and that's our topic for the day. Karen and her husband Doug have 2 children and are members of St. Raphael's Parish. Karen, even though you've been here before, let's do a little more bio. How about for our guests who are new to this, a little more about yourself?
Sure. Well, as you said, I've been with the Archdiocese for almost 9 years now. And in my role at the Archdiocese, one of the things that we do is really we support the liturgical and worship life of all the parishes. And we do that by modeling good liturgy, but also just by supporting. And, one of my great joys is writing a column in the Record called Between Amens. Maybe some of the listeners to this program have read that from time to time. And I hope in that I can sort of communicate not only my love of the liturgy, I really am a great lover of the beauty of our Catholic faith and the traditions that we have and the music that we have. But also I like to think I'm just a normal person. I have 2 kids. My life is full of carpool and figuring out what's for dinner and answering, way too many emails and all of that mundane stuff that I know all of us get bogged down in. And I try to make my love of the liturgy sort of make sense with the rest of my life. And that's really one of my passions and something I try to communicate to the readers of the column and the listeners of this program.
That's great. Karen, I'm glad you brought up the column in the Record. It's very popular, and a lot of us people talk about it all the time. It's great.
I get people in the gym who say, I read your column this week. Who are you?
Who are you?
That's wonderful.
What are you doing in the gym?
All
right. That's terrific. And now that we moved into April, we've completed the great season of Lent and the beautiful Holy Week and the big services in the church. Now, for a liturgy person, that's kind of the highlight of your year, is it not?
It is. Yes, it is our Super Bowl. It is our marathon. But it really does highlight what is possible, what is possible in terms of beautiful liturgy. And not just that we would do that and then say, yay, we did it, we're done with it. But then how does that impact our daily living? What does that then mean for us for the rest of our lives, for the rest of the year? If you came to church on Easter and it was wonderful and beautiful, okay, let's see what this Sunday looks like coming up, and the next Sunday and the next Sunday. And so, yes, the beautiful, wonderful days of the Triduum and of Easter Sunday are the pinnacle of our liturgical year, but they are also the sort of engine that then thrusts us back into our daily living with renewed faith and energy.
That's terrific. And that's what our topic today is, because we're talking about what has been known or referred to as the Eucharistic Revival, a 3-year process that was launched by the U.S. bishops. And before we get into that, remind us what national is happening. Tell us about local. What is the focus and the purpose of this initiative for the local church here in Louisville?
The purpose, and these are my words, not the USCCB's words, I think the purpose for us is sort of a renewal of Catholic pride. It's almost like a self-esteem campaign in a way, just remembering who we are as Catholics, maybe exposing us to some of those Eucharistic practices and devotions that people my age and younger maybe have never experienced in their life. So it's about really rediscovering some of the beauty of our worship and our liturgy, and in particular of our Eucharistic devotion, which is one of the things that makes us unique as Catholics.
From what I read, there's phases of this revival, and we're just nearing the end of I guess, what they call the parish phase. Or the DAS. So tell me about the phases of what's going on here.
Yes, these are fuzzy lines, so they're not. It's not like we stop one and start the next.
Okay.
But we started with a year of diocesan focus, and so the Archdiocese was kind of leading by example for that first year. Now we are coming to the end of the parish year, and so we've given parishes a number of tools. One of the great things about this process is, of course, we have 110 unique parishes. And so they're all at different places in terms of what they're doing. I mean, we have a parish that has had perpetual adoration for years. And then we have other parishes who have done Eucharistic processions for years, and others who are completely new to them. So knowing that everyone's at kind of a different place in this journey, we've tried to provide parishes with tools that will work for them. And then they can kind of choose what they would like to do, what they would like to try. And then moving forward, trying to give them the tools to evaluate how this went, and then say, okay, moving forward, here's what we want to do. Because this is not a one-year thing where we then say, okay, we did Eucharist, now let's move on. Eucharist is who we are as Catholics, and it is a permanent part of who we are and how we worship. And so the purpose of these 3 years really is to explore what that's going to look like then as a permanent way of moving forward as a church.
You know, when I first heard about this, I was struck by the word revival. That's not a very Catholic word.
No.
Tell me about revival.
Yes. Okay, so revival, I'm a word person,
It reminds me of like a big tent somewhere.
It does. We have sort of Protestant associations, a big tent outdoors and, people getting slain in the spirit and all of this kind of fun stuff. Revival means something, bringing to life something that is either dormant or dead or dying. And so the church had to first ask the question, okay, what is it that we are trying to revive? What is it that we are trying to breathe new life into? And I think in the process of being on these committees that I've worked with, I think we've learned that it's not really about doctrine. It's not about saying, yes, I assent to transubstantiation. I understand what that means. Although that is very important, that is really symptomatic of a bigger problem, which is this sort of lack of fervor, lack of energy, lack of fire, lack of pride in who we are as Catholics. And that's not universal, of course, but it's just something that we need to work on as a church, really lighting a fire, having some zeal, having some fervor, having some pride in who we are as Catholics. And so that's really been the focus of this. It started out data-based, people don't believe in the Eucharist, people don't understand the Eucharist well, we need to fix that. I think we learned very quickly that was just part of a bigger problem with Catholic culture. And, that is something that is harder to work on. If it was just, hey, here's what transubstantiation means, we could pass out flyers and be done with it. But it really is a larger cultural problem.
Great words, zeal, and energy. Right, words matter. Those are really kind of fun words to think about our faith in terms of those terms.
Yes.
Very good. It's early, just a couple years into this. Can you tell, are people paying attention to it? Is there anything you can observe going on in our parishes?
Yes, there's been a lot of curiosity and a lot of, I think, creativity, a lot of let's try this and see what happens. We've never done this before. Let's give it a shot and see what's going on. I've been really impressed in a surprising way with some of the things going on with children in particular. We've had a number of parishes pick up programs like Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. I was just visiting St. Thomas in Bardstown, and they have this studio that's probably the size of this studio that's just full of like little kid-sized little monstrances and little patens and little it's like almost like a little museum for children to learn about their faith. And so that's been replicated in a number of parishes. Parents are sometimes evangelized by their children, and that's a beautiful thing. So I've been really impressed with what's going on with children, with communion to the sick and homebound, with Eucharistic processions. So many of our parishes are doing Eucharistic processions now that we found it last year difficult to have a diocesan one because everyone was doing them in their parishes on Corpus Christi, which is a wonderful problem to have. We had just an abundance of interest in Eucharistic processions. So little things like that I've noticed, just curiosity about some of these things that we haven't tried before.
Let's dwell into a couple of those more specifically. The processions. I sometimes get an imagery of the Jesus's process moving into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, or other things like that. But we talk about Eucharistic processions, Corpus Christi. Just to talk about processions for a minute, and then look at some examples.
Yeah, processions are bringing Jesus to the world in a literal way so that we can witness to our faith and then bring Jesus to the world in other ways as well. And so what it means is literally taking Jesus out of the church environment, out of the abundant beauty of our sanctuary, and bringing him out into the streets of our city, of our neighborhood, so that other people who see this pass by might say, oh, wow, what is that? That is interesting. I've never seen anything like that before. And it can pique the interest of others to bear witness to their own faith. It's wonderful for us who do it as well. That's the other thing about this revival. We like to think, okay, well, that's about those people who are not in our churches, who are not believing. It's about them. But really, it is about us as well. And so for Catholics who have been going to church their whole lives, who have never participated in a Eucharistic procession, it is quite a moving experience as well to take church in a literal way out into our communities. And it really is a symbol of what we should be doing all the time, right? We say the Mass is ended, go in peace, thanks be to God. We don't just check that box and then say, okay, we're done for the week. No, the point then is that we then go out and take Jesus with us in our bodies out into the world to be Jesus to the world. The procession reminds us in a very literal way of what that process looks like.
Very interesting. I know that in Europe and other parts of the world, processions around feast days, saints' days are very common. In this country, we replaced that tradition with parades for every kind of thing that goes on. So rather than having a procession for St. Patrick or Easter, we have Easter parades and St. Patrick's Day parades. These are different. But this bringing Jesus out to the world, I haven't heard it described exactly that way. So it's not just about a gathering. It's about the where it happens matters.
Correct. Yes. It is important to remember, and again, this sort of relates back to the column, that our faith life is not compartmentalized into an hour a week or, your morning prayer and then you're done with it, but that really everything we do, even those mundane things, walking down the street, driving in your car, brushing your teeth, taking your kids to school, even those most mundane things that we do are supposed to be soaked in the grace of what we receive at Mass. And that is what a procession is.
Wow. I would love to get inside someone's head who's never seen that. What goes through their mind when they see a group of Catholics processing down? Oftentimes the priest or deacon is carrying a monstrance or the Eucharist in a ciborium of type, right?
Yes.
And they often have a tent over it. Is that right?
They get to wear fancy clothes. They wear a garment called a cope, which is just a big cape. I mean, it's cool. That's the other thing about all this is we just have the coolest stuff. We have the best stuff. We have the coolest traditions, and we should be proud of that, and we should show that off because it's part of what attracts people to our faith is the cool stuff. Now, that's not the core of who we are. Jesus is the core of who we are, but we should appreciate some of that wonderful, beautiful stuff that surrounds these traditions that we have. Yeah, it is striking. And the pictures, if you look back through the records, archives the pictures of some of our Corpus Christi processions that we've done in the last couple of years in downtown Louisville, to see 4th Street Live in the background and a Corpus Christi procession. It's a very striking image. So, that sort of juxtaposition of everyday life and Jesus in the Eucharist and all that cool stuff is just so powerful. Really, it is. And we cannot underestimate how powerful that might be to draw someone to our faith.
Jesus out in the world. What a great imagery, because there was a time Corpus Christi processions were often in private spaces, not very private. We'd had them in history in Churchill Downs, in parks. But walking down the street in actual neighborhoods, I've seen that, and in downtown Louisville. Those are great images. Karen, the other thing you mentioned briefly, and I know a lot of parishes have expanded its use, and that's Eucharistic adoration. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that a little bit. Tell us about the purpose and the format of Eucharistic adoration.
I did a workshop about 2 months ago on Eucharistic adoration to sort of explain the details of it, what it looks like. And I was surprised. One of the questions I got over and over again is, this sounds great, but what do I do? What do I do in adoration? I don't know what to do. I know how it starts. I know how it ends. What do we do in the middle? And so we just started talking about how this devotion of Eucharistic adoration, what it does is it creates a space for us to be with Jesus, and how we fill that space is up to you. And it really is one of our most creative liturgical procedures or liturgies that we have. I'm a liturgist, I'm a rules gal, everything needs to be to the letter. You say the black, you do the red. Eucharistic adoration is quite different. There's a beginning to it. There's an end. How you fill the middle is really up to you. And so we have all of these various fun things that are going on. I mean, Eucharistic adoration, yes, it can be silence, but you can do finger painting. You can bring pillows and sit on the floor. You can color. You can do Lectio Divina. You can have praise and worship music. You can have a concert. So there's all sorts of things that can happen in this space. It is simply a creative way of being with Jesus in the Eucharist. And so part of what's been fun about teaching about Eucharistic adoration and then seeing how it's been done in a lot of our parishes is to see the creativity, to make people just feel comfortable with being with Jesus, because I think that a lot of times is the barrier. What am I going to do? I'm going to be bored for 90 minutes sitting here with Jesus. Well, bring a novel and read, and do that in the presence of Jesus. Come and do whatever you might normally be doing, but do it in the presence of Jesus. That is part of the fun of Eucharistic adoration. It's very creative.
Eucharistic adoration as fun. You got a lot of columns to write here. That's one. One priest recently said in a homily, he referred back to the Christmas song, "O come, all you faithful," who the stanza or the refrain says, "Come, let us adore him," and that's how we invited people. He said, we sing that with great energy at Christmas, but do we do it actually? And that's what he was inviting people to come, let us adore. So he worked on the adore part. Mm-hmm. You're focusing here then on how we are in the presence of Jesus.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think this just has to be a very serious thing, and that we have to pray, and that only people who truly, really understand the depth of the Eucharist can get anything out of Eucharistic adoration. And it really is one of these situations where literally just come and do something that is anything that's reverent in that space will work, anything at all. And it really just is a practice of getting used to being in the presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. It really is just a personal practice of getting used to that. And I just want to share with people that it really is that simple. It does not have to be complicated or particularly pious of an exercise. It's quite simple, and anybody can do it.
That's wonderful. Okay, those are local things about the Eucharistic Revival, but there's also some national things that are going on. You're on the committee. You make us proud. The U.S. bishops called upon you to help think about the national initiatives. So let's talk about the national initiatives for a little bit. Give us the big picture first, and then I know we have 2 events to talk about.
Yes, the big picture on the national level is that we are trying to create basically a database or a resource nationwide of practices, liturgies, resources for parishes. We've got a Bible study out there. We have hymns out there that have been written as part of the Eucharistic Revival. And so what the national working groups are trying to do are provide these resources nationwide so that as people are going through, after this 3-year process ends, that there are then sort of a bank of things that people can call upon if they want to start Eucharistic adoration in their parish. They've never done it before. If they want to have a night of mercy or a 40 hours devotion or things of this nature, that we have those resources ready and available to help.
One of the national initiatives I know is called the Pilgrimage, the National Eucharistic Pilgrimage. Tell us about that.
Yes, this is really cool. So it is launching on Pentecost Sunday this year. So that is May 19th. And 4 corners of the United States, so the East Coast, the West Coast, North and South, are each sending a group of about 12 pilgrims who have applied. They're all young adults because they have to do a lot of walking, so they're in great shape, but they're all young people who are going to walk mostly on foot from those places to Indianapolis, where the National Congress will be held in July. And so on May 19th, our route, which is called the Juan Diego route. Each of the routes is named after American saints, saints of the Americas. And so the Juan Diego route will start in Brownsville, Texas, which is that little tip of Texas. And it's going to come up all the way through, and it will be coming through the Archdiocese of Louisville in early July.
Wow. So do we watch that happen? I mean, do we look for helicopters to fly over and watch them walk in? Do we stand on the streets and greet them? What happens?
Well, there will be this is pretty neat. There's going to be an online platform to track their movements live. Oh. Okay, so we will be able to track where they are and where they're coming. We know that they will be in our territory July 4th through the 9th, and they have a number of stops scheduled at some of our parishes. Most of those stops are open to the public, so it would be things like having Mass in one of our parishes, or having benediction, or Liturgy of the Hours. They are stopping for lunch some places. They're stopping just to rest and visit. And the purpose of the pilgrimage really is just for these folks to engage with the various parts of the country and see what Catholicism is like in Louisiana, in Alabama, and when they get here in Kentucky. And so we're going to show them the Kentucky Holy Lands. We're going to show them our proto-cathedral, one of the most historic places in Catholicism in the United States. They're going to come up Bardstown Road and visit a number of parishes. And so that schedule of where they will be made public. I think the Record has already published a preliminary schedule, but as that gets refined, the people of the Archdiocese will be welcome to come to those events. They'll be welcome to walk on foot if they want for certain legs of that journey, if they're able. But certainly those public liturgies, they're certainly welcome to attend, and there will be opportunities for them to stop and talk to the pilgrims and hear about their story. They'll be towards the end of their journey when they come to us, so they should have lots of stories, and they'll be very tired, I'm sure, as well.
Now, each of the 4 pilgrims, will they be carrying the Eucharist with them?
They are, yes. So they're taking it from the churches that they begin with, and they're traveling with Jesus all the way up through that journey.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
So I think it's scheduled for right around 4th of July weekend.
Yes.
We'll see the dates conform, and that'll be all public. But that's coming up before we know it.
Yes. And one of the things, if people are wondering ways that they can help, we're looking for folks to house some of those pilgrims along the way. So if you have a couple of spare bedrooms and would be interested in housing a couple of pilgrims for a night, there are some details that need to be checked with that. But that is one of the ways that we're still looking for some assistance July 4th through 9th.
They could reach out to the Office of Worship anytime with that. Now, they'll have an opportunity so we can pray with them, and some can walk with them. That the image of pilgrims coming from the 4 corners of the country, that's really unique. That's really
Yes. I also think it's very American, this idea that, yes, we can just cover all this ground on foot. Yes, we can do it. It was almost one of those ideas that I'm not sure they really thought through all the details when they said, yes, let's do that. Because there's some desert out there, as people know, that is difficult to traverse, and mountains.
Weather.
Yeah. And the Appalachian Mountains, for goodness sake. I mean, so it will be quite a feat, and certainly something that's never been attempted before.
Yeah. And all that leads to the second event, biggest event besides the pilgrimage, is the Congress, which will be in Indianapolis. Tell us about the Congress.
The Congress, so the last time that we had a National Eucharistic Congress in this country was 1941. So that was like 83 or something years ago. We had an International Congress in Philadelphia in 1976. So these are things that are not in most people's memories of having ever happened. So there's a lot of curiosity about what it will look like. I've looked at some of the program for that, the topics that will be covered. There's a lot of really interesting topics, a lot of really interesting speakers. There's things about celebrating the sacraments with people with disabilities, gender and the Eucharist, evangelical Protestantism, and how do we defend our faith in light of that. So these are topics that would not have been possible in 1941. So it's going to be different, I think, from those historical congresses, and something we just haven't done in a really long time, come together as a Catholic nation, Catholics of the United States, to express our faith on a big level. They're expecting about 80,000 people to be there in Lucas Oil Stadium. So really big liturgies, Eucharistic adoration with thousands and thousands of people. You can imagine it's going to be a very powerful experience. And we have a number of folks from our archdiocese who are planning to go to that.
I was going to ask you that. So parishioners have signed up to come to this and be part of it.
Yes.
It's several days, right?
It is. It's a 5-day, I think it's a Wednesday through a Sunday. Luckily, they have day passes, so if someone wants to go for just a day, that's a possibility. I know a lot of parishes are putting together caravans. Individuals also can sign up just on their own. Housing and that sort of thing are a challenge in Indianapolis because, as you can imagine, absorbing 80,000 people into their hotels. But luckily, we're within driving distance, and so hopefully some folks can make that happen. If they can't, a lot of the events will be on live stream available. So that information, as it becomes available to me, I will certainly share, and we'll try to publicize in our church bulletins, in the records, so that people can participate online if that's how they want to participate as well.
That's what I was wondering, for either the processions, not processions, or the movement from the four corners of the country, the time in Indianapolis, if that's beyond someone's capability, they can probably find other ways to connect in?
Absolutely, yes. There will be an online platform, as I said. But additionally, please just pray for the success of the Eucharistic Congress. This is, we're breaking new ground here. We haven't done things like this on this level before. And so really, it's all just a big experiment. But we are lucky that the pilgrimage is coming through. And I think that will be a really great opportunity for people to be a part of that, because of course that is going to the Congress. That is, I think at their opening Mass, I think this is true, all of those monstrances will come together on the altar. So hopefully we'll get to see that. And those of you who participated along the pilgrimage route will hopefully feel like you're a part of that in that moment.
Now, I don't want to use a secular imagery for you, but the idea of that reminds me a little bit of when the torches for the Olympics is carried around the world. And as I understand the story, you can correct me, there's a point at which the group coming through Kentucky will pass somehow the group will pass into Indiana over the walking bridge and be greeted by the Indianapolis Diocese.
That's right. Yes, and of course, we have history with the Indianapolis Archdiocese as well. They were carved from our original territory. Their bishop is a son of our diocese, and so we have a lot of history and connection. So we thought, well, if we're going to pass this off to Indiana, let's make that something special. And so we are going to cross over the walking bridge, and we're going to gather on the Indiana side. And the two archbishops we're going to have a little prayer service. So people will be invited to participate in that as well. And then we will hand that monstrance off, and they can take that then with them to their next parish in the Archdiocese of Indianapolis, and then on to Indianapolis itself.
This is fascinating. What a summer this is going to be of events all focused on the Eucharist. Yes. How about that for Catholic culture?
Yes.
Let's have this 3-year process is coming right in front of us because of the parish life, the movement across the country, right through our diocese, across our cities. And then the Congress, which I know you'll be at, you're on the committee. Archbishop Shelton will be there. I've heard numbers of parishes are sending groups to it, so we'll be well represented. But 80,000 Catholics, that doesn't happen very often.
No.
That's very exciting.
It will be very exciting, and I'm thrilled to see what it will bring.
I want to use a quote. One of the leaders of the process is Bishop Cousins, who's the chair of the Committee on Evangelization and Catechesis, and he's also the chair of the Congress, I believe. And he says, we want to start a fire, not a program. He's using some of the same images you are there. This is not about, let's do something and check the box and come on, what's next year's topic? Tell us again about that.
Yeah. Really, this is about small things. We're doing big things, but it's about small things and lighting a fire under people to make a choice to come to Mass. It really is that simple. To go to confession, it's that simple. To look at your home and say, is this a Catholic home? And how do I know? To look at your school and say, is this a Catholic school? And how do I know? To look at your church and say, is this a Catholic church? And how do I know? So those small things are really the big things. We're doing some big events, some big processes and processions and congresses. And those big things are intended not to be the end, but to be the beginning that lights that fire to say to each individual, what are the small things that you're going to then do, that you're going to commit to for the rest of your life? So that's the purpose of the entire revival.
Karen, I have no doubt you've created enthusiasm for our listeners about the revival surrounding the Eucharist to make it. It's not just the big things, the big events, but the small things in our lives. That's just terrific. Listen, thank you for your work in the Archdiocese especially, for your column, for your training programs, for guiding our big liturgies and the small things that happen in each parish, but also your work on this monumental effort, a national initiative that we get a front row seat thanks to you and the group who's going to be connecting us. You've served us both well nationally as an organizer, but also helped us with all of our local efforts, and we're really grateful. I appreciate you and all the ways you serve us, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank our listeners and our viewers for tuning into this podcast. Join us again next month of another opportunity to learn what's new in ArchLou.